in the snow with the traction control off, I'm not going to go very fast, but I'm going to try. Howdy folks, Nathan coming at you from Winter Park, Colorado, and this is the 2020 Rocky Mountain Redline Winter Driving Event. And behind me, I have two vehicles that are built technically under the same roof. So, we have the 2020 Acura Rdx and the 2020 Honda CR-V, both of which are fitted with snow tires, both of which are going to be taken into the snow out here on a course, and we're going to have a little bit of fun and talk about the differences between their all-wheel drive systems. The Honda CR-V comes with a brand new 1.5-liter turbocharged engine. It's now standard. And in the very near future, we're going to be driving its cousin, which has a hybrid power plant, but it has the same all-wheel drive system, real-time four-wheel drive or real-time all-wheel drive, depending on who you are. Now the Honda, it's not the same system at all as the Acura. In fact, it's channeled through a CVT, not an automatic transmission. And it's primarily a front-wheel drive vehicle that is able to send power to the back when needed. Now, as you'll see, it's not quite as sporty and as hardcore as the Acura, and nor should it be. The whole point of that system is to be safe, to get you around the corner safely, to get you moving safely. And that's exactly what this system does. Now the traction control has been shut off. It has real-time all-wheel drive. And I like to look at that system as a safety precaution more than something that you would actually bash around off-road. It takes power and puts it to the back wheels as needed. And it only does it really when there's slippage. So it's not proactive like some other systems or predictive like other systems. This is something that just does its thing based on, okay, you're slipping, I'm gonna give you extra push to get around this corner, to get up this driveway. And it works. And that's one of the things you have to kind of get through your head between the two of them. One is more of a sports car, this is more of a family car. I can tell you this though, in terms of ride, comfort, and usability, it's hard to beat a CR-V. Let's talk about horsepower, because the 2020 Honda CR-V has a 1.5-liter turbocharged engine that makes 190 horsepower and 174 pound-feet of torque. This engine is hooked up to a continuously variable transmission, a CVT. Now, while that's not my favorite transmission, Honda makes it work. Not only that, but because the small little turbo spools up pretty quick, there's not a lot of lag, and that's a great thing for performance. Speaking of performance, this vehicle with the all-wheel drive system gets 27 miles per gallon city, 32 mpg highway, and a combined 29 mpg on regular fuel. That ain't too bad. Foot's all the way down. It was already going, there's slippage. So I'm turning all the way, there's the rear end, kicks in. Turning, slipping, there's the rear end, it kicks in. It's seamless, even in conditions like this. I'm slipping, there's the rear end, kicks in, and oh, look at that, almost, yeah, the rear end went a little tiny bit up, which I like, but it's not going to be what I would consider a WRX on snow tires. But it does the job. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. And once again, remember, I have the traction control system shut off. So it did really well considering my ham-fisted driving and the fact that it had some of the electronic nannies turned off. So what is the real-time all-wheel drive system with intelligent control inside the Honda CR-V? Well, simply put, it takes a front-wheel drive car and makes it an all-wheel drive car, and it does it by having an electric motor, a little tiny one, inside the transmission that actually activates the rear diff when needed
so it becomes all-wheel drive. Up to 40% of that power goes to the rear end, and that helps you get around corners and goes up hills, and it does a whole bunch of other stuff when it detects slippage.
Now it's the Acura's turn, and the Acura has a very different type of all-wheel drive system. It has super handling all-wheel drive. And here's the cool part about that vehicle. When it moves, it can take up to 70% of its power and move it to the rear axle. Then, when that power is back there, up to 100% can go side to side. So what it's doing right now is in the snow, it's proportioning what needs to go where. However, even on dry roads, it's helping with torque vectoring. Look at them go. And it gives you a rear drive-like experience, which is really cool because that's the one thing that's missing with a lot of all-wheel drive vehicles, especially ones that are front-wheel drive bias. All right, guys, so inside the Acura, obviously more luxurious, much more comfortable for sport seating. And here we go. Now, the traction radius are off, so we get a chance to have a little bit of fun. Cool part is, if you take your time, you can actually get that rear end to kick out. That is something you cannot do in very many all-wheel drive vehicles, and that's because it is mechanical. That is truly awesome and fun. The other side of it is, of course, you can look like an idiot and do a donut, which is cool for some people, but not when you're on a course with a bunch of other journalists. Now, this is a short course, but the point of it is to force the vehicle to work its all-wheel drive system along with the snow tires and get around it in the most efficient way possible. And that's exactly what this thing does.
The Acura Rdx is a completely different animal. We're talking about a vehicle that has a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that makes 272 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. It has an actual automatic transmission. Yeah, baby, at 10-speed. Unfortunately, it's a push-button transmission, but for those of you who like paddle shifters, yes, it has it. And it is an extremely thrifty setup for that much horsepower. For a vehicle that weighs 4,000 pounds, it gets 22 mpg city, 28 highway, and a combined 24. Remember, this thing's a screamer, so that's not too bad. One thing you have to keep in mind, with this type of setup, it is a very different feel, both on ice and on tarmac.
All right, guys, as you're looking at the display, it's going to show you how the all-wheel drive system is working. It shows you where the power is being sent and how much of it is being sent to each wheel. And the cool part is, this vehicle really does let you kind of carve up the corners a little bit once you get used to it. And that, to me, is awesome, but it also shows you that it's doing it.
The Honda CR-V starts at around $25,000, that's your base model, but this is the 2020 Honda CR-V 1.5T all-wheel drive. Whew, that's a lot of info. But with that, you get a fully loaded vehicle that costs MSRP $35,845. That is competitive with other cars in the class. However, there is a hybrid coming out in the very near future that we will be driving. I expect that price to be different. The 2020 Acura Rdx with the 2-liter turbo starts at $37,800 for the base model, and as tested is $46,795. Bear in mind, this is the A-spec version, which has a lot of extra goodies that make it look cool. One of the cool things about being at the Rocky Mountain Redline Winter Drive Encounter is the fact that we get to do things like drag racing. Now granted, this is not exactly regular drag racing, it is in the snow and it's a bit of an obstacle course, but we got a chance to put the RDX against the CR-V, and I was really surprised about the results because honestly, that little CR-V kept up. Very little lag, it moved nice, but in the end, the RDX is just a beast. Well guys, the snow is intensifying and that brings an end to this fun day, but I had a great time testing out these vehicles and both did very well in the snow. Thanks for joining me once again. Don't forget to go to TFLcar.com for more news, views, real world reviews,
and a lot of write-ups on all of these vehicles and more.